Hi everyone, today I'm going to show what is S3 and its common or an important usage. This is going to be cover most of the basic and advanced concept of the S3. After this video, you should have an idea of how S3 works and its implementation. Supposed to cover a few tips for the AWS Solution Architect professional exam in terms of S3. Definitely there are 5 to 6 questions coming in the exam which are related to S3. Especially storage classes, S3, gateway endpoint sort of thing. More on that, I'm covering a lifecycle policy, S3 event, replication, and many more. If you have any question, comment, please comment under the comment section. As usual, if you enjoy my video and the content, please like and subscribe my channel. I really appreciate it. Let's get in. AWS S3. S3 stands for Simple Storage Service. AWS S3 helps you to store and protect any amount of data for a range of use cases, such as website, mobile application, backup, and restore. With this video, I'm going to talk about what is S3 and usage of S3 with the demos. This includes some of the advanced topics such as replication, S3 gateway endpoint, which are key question in AWS solution exam. So as I went through my AWS solution exam professional last week, I can guarantee about 6 to 7 questions are related to S3. Of course, I'll emphasize the important points and more potential area where you get the exam question while going through this video. Right, this is the agenda for the today tutorial. First and most, talk about what is S3 and its component and the terminologies. Then the storage classes such as standard and glacier and their key differences. Gonna talk about more aspect on cost, availability and durabilities. Then talk about life cycle policy, which is the greatest features come with the S3 to minimize operational costs automatically. After that, S3 event notification. Of course, anyone using S3, more likely they're going to use S3 event. Followed by the S3 object unlock and the versions. And later talk about encryption as security is a more concern today. Then the replication. This is basically how we replicate S3 object to different buckets in a different region, maybe different account. Finally, accessing S3 using CLI, API, and plus using the pre-signed URL, and eventually we're going to talk about S3 gateway endpoint. This is something more questions come in the AWS exam, so we're going to talk about S3 gateway endpoint and what the usage of it. We're going to talk about all these topics with the demo, so you will get a better understanding of all these aspects. Let's move to what is S3. S3 is an object-based storage system. There are many types of storage system like file-based and block-based. So example, FSX is a file-based storage system where EBS is a block-based storage provided by AWS. So we will talk about these other storage type in a different video. So in this case, as I mentioned, the S3 is an object-based storage system. The main component of the S3 is a bucket. A bucket is like a container where all the objects are saved. So you can create a folder to organize this object, and the key is an identifier of the object where value is an actual object. So for example, if the key is a file name and the value is an actual content. Then talk about the version. The version is something you can use to keep the history of the object. Once the version is enabled, you can track down the previous version of the object. The example, like by any chance you delete the object, but you can retrieve the old object if the version is enabled. After that, the manifest. Manifest, it is more likely metadata, which is describe the S3 bucket, so object like a tags. I'll show you in a while I'm going through the demo. Finally, the access information. This is basically who can access what. So policy and role can be used to restrict access level of the bucket or the bucket level. Let's go to the demo. So I can show you briefly what are these aspects, this terminology, and how do they enable or how they implement. I'm in a AWS console. With this demo, I'm going to create a bucket and the files, then show how the versioning work. After that, I'm going to create a policy to restrict the access to this bucket for some of the user and see how the access work on this bucket. What we're going to do, I'm typing S3, click on the S3 link, the first link. It's going to redirect to S3 dashboard, the first screen. Currently I do have a couple of buckets. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new bucket. Click on the create bucket and do some name, demo S3. Should be okay. As far as this name is unique for globally, it's allowed to create. Then I'm create the AWS region as a South Australia, Sydney, and then the object ownership. So basically, I'm gonna access restrict the access using the SEL. This is a recommended way, and the other one is a block all public access. You can allow to public for this bucket, but it's not recommended. If you have a really requirements, just you can enable and allow the public to access this bucket. This is where you can enable the versioning. I'm going to enable, and where you can add something. Let's say this environment is a dev environment. This bucket is under dev environment, and other one is encryption. You can either use Amazon S3 managed key, or you can use a KMS. So I'm gonna with the S3, which is the default one. And in the advanced setting, you have a object lock. This is basically which says write once, read many. Basically, once you enable, the object get created, but you can't delete the particular object. This is more useful for if you have a company which is, for example, for the government company, a government regulation. They need come under some compliance. So that's where you can use this feature. I'm gonna create a bucket with the option. Oh, seems like this bucket name is already got. I'm gonna use demo test again, test S3. I put 2 test. I'm gonna click create bucket. Bucket got created successfully at the very last, and this is says access permission. This bucket and object are not in the public. I'm gonna go inside the bucket, and then this is where you can create a folder to organize object. But in this case, I'm not gonna create a folder, but you can do. So then I do have a sample file, which is a testing file. What I'm going to do, I'm going to upload this file to this new bucket. As it's mentioned, it says it gives some information about the object, and I'm gonna upload. Just click on the upload. File got uploaded. As you can see, this is my bucket, and this is the new file. So you can click on the file of object, and you can see some of the metadata on the object. This is where you can download the file, and or you can copy this URL. The same thing it does. You can copy and you can open in a new window. It should it says you can't access because its permission is denied. What you can do, you can download the file. So let's see, I download the file. If I show you, yes, the content is the one that we uploaded. That's fine. So what we're gonna do, as version is enabled, I'm gonna update the file in my local. Then I'm gonna override the file. This is let's say version 1. I update the file and save it. I'm gonna upload the same file into same bucket. This is what's gonna happen. It's gonna override the existing file. So if I upload the success, if I go again, Then I'm going to download again the same file. So this is a new file. Yes, it's, you can see the file got uploaded. So what we can see, let's say you want to get the previous file, the one that we uploaded very beginning. So how do you retrieve that file? Is go to the bucket and open the file. Right, so how do we say the version? Let's go inside the object and go to the version tab. And what you can see, there are two versions. The very first one is the one that updated, the current version. The second one is the old version. Let's open the old version and go to download. Its download has a S3, a test tree. So I'm going to open test tree file. As you can see, this is the original file. So as even though you override the original file in this S3 bucket, because the version is enabled, so still you can retrieve the old version. This is more like track down the old version. You are not gonna lose any objects. That's how the version work. Now let's see how access permissions work. A user called John and see whether John has access to this particular object. Let's go to the IAM and you can create a new user. So I'm gonna create a new user, open in a new tab. Go to users, I'm gonna create a new user called John. Give a permission. I want to create an IAM user, custom password. Let's say demo $312. That's my password, and click on next. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach a full permission on S3. So this John user John has a full permission on S3. Create a user. This create a user for me, and I'm gonna yeah, that's fine. I got the user. Then what I'm going to do, I'm gonna open. I use a user John to access in my other window. So let's go to, this is my other window. What you can see, this is a John, the new user. If I go to S3, and if I go to the new bucket, this is a file. So basically the new user can access this bucket and the objects easily. That's fine, right? So that's been this user, the John can access this bucket. So what I'm going to do now, so I'm gonna restrict this bucket to John. So how do you do that? So this is where the permissions come. Back in my S3 buckets, so I'm gonna restrict this permission to a user John. So go to permission, and then in the bucket policy, click on edit, and you can paste this policy. So let's go through what does it does. This policy does. So as you can see, this is a statement. The first statement is basically, it says some random GUID, and the effect is a denied. Basically says I'm gonna deny the access. So principle, this is a user John, the AWS user, the one that we created, and it says all action is everything on top of this resource. Basically, in simply say, user John cannot access any S3 action on this particular bucket. That's what it does. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to save, and let's see now the user John can access this bucket. Right, I'm back in my user account John, and the very first screen you can see the error against the new bucket. That's been seems like John doesn't have a permission to access this bucket. Let's go inside and have a look. Okay, of course, like earlier John is able to see all the object. Now he's not able to see any object because it's a denied. We do have a policy applied to this S3 bucket which denied access to John. So that's how you can control your permission on S3 bucket. S3 storage classes. There are different storage classes to cater your requirement. Some of the storage classes are cheaper for storage, but retrieval cost could be higher. The example, the S3 standard is expensive to storage, but no cost for the retrieval, where the S3 Glacier Deep Archive cheaper for storage but expensive to retrieve the data. What I mean by the expensive is more relative to these classes. Otherwise, overall AWS S3 is the cheapest option to store content data. As you can see, the default storage is a S3 standard, and the second one, the S3 intelligent tiering, which is a new S3 class, which help you to minimize the cost when you don't know the access pattern of the object. The example, what does it mean by access pattern? So the S3 will analyze the access pattern of the object, then move to that object to low cost storage class based on the access. If the object is less access, then it's pushed to a lower storage class. If the object is a more access frequently, then it goes to the S3 standard. That's how the S3 intelligent tiering work. Overall, all the Glacier classes are comparatively less cost for the storage. There are a few things you need to consider when selecting the S3 storage classes. So the retrieval charge, basically, as you can see, S3 standard and S3 intelligent tiering doesn't have any retrieval charges, where other classes has some charge for the GB retrieve. The other one, the first byte at latency. So if I go to the first, most of the classes are millisecond, how fast you can download the object. But wherever the Glacier flexible retrieval and the deep archive, S3 Glacier deep archive, which take more hours to download. If you request to download object, it could take 12 hours for the deep archive. And the other things you need to think about, the minimum storage duration charge. So S3 and S3 standard and S3 intelligent tiering doesn't have any minimum storage duration, but where the most of the rest of the classes has a duration. So what does 30 days mean in this case? S3 standard 1A, it says doesn't matter you keep the object 1 day or 30 days, you need to pay for the 30 days. That's what this storage class pricing model work. So we will talk about more retrieval times on the next slide for the Glacier. Right, this is a Glacier. So as you can see, different storage classes has a different data retrieval time. The data retrieval time for the Amazon S3 Glacier flexible retrieval class can be configurable. So you can see you can configure from minute to hours. Plus the Glacier deep archive retrieval time could be within the 12 hours. It's take a long hour. So something, if you want to get download frequently or quickly, you should not keep in the Glacier. This is Amazon S3 Glacier deep archive more used for backups, and so you do not access frequently, and it doesn't matter how the download is the fast downloading. So I will show demo for these storage classes along with the next slide. S3 lifecycle policy. This is one of the greatest features come with the S3. There are two types of lifecycle policy actions. The first one is a transition action. This action defines when the object transition to another storage classes. The example, you have save some object in S3, and the first month those objects are used frequently, get accessed frequently. But after 1 month, the object are accessed very rarely. In such cases, you can use a lifecycle policy to move the object to low cost of storage after 1 month to reduce the cost. So let's say if you are sure these objects are not used after 1 month or 1 year, but still you need to do a need for this object for auditing or compliance purposes, you can push this data to S3 Glacier Deep Archive class to minimize the cost. So the other one is a expiration action. This action are used to delete the object. Let's say you have some object and after 1 year you don't need those object at all. Then you can create a S3 lifecycle policy to delete this object after 1 year automatically. So this will reduce the operational cost. You don't need to create or run any manual script or manual program. The lifecycle policy will automatically delete or transition to different storage classes based on your the configuration. So let's have a look on demo and see how S3 lifecycle work. Right, I'm back in my AWS console S3 dashboard, S3 page. What I'm going to do, I'm going to select the S3 bucket, the one that we created earlier, and go to management. This is where you can create a new lifecycle role. I'm click on the create lifecycle role and give it a name, rule 1. And this is where you can, there are two options you can apply this rule. Either you can apply to the whole bucket, or you can specify a specific folder. Let's say you have a folder start with maybe test or dev or production. You can give a, let's say you can give a name and dev. So this rule apply only for this folder, right? So what I'm going to do for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to click on the apply to all object in the bucket. So then you do have a couple of options to select the rule action. The first one, basically, as you can see, you can move the current version when when it's reached a certain threshold on the date. So let's say I want to move my object and after 30 days I want to move to standard IA, and after 365 days I want to move to Glacier. That's how you can define the this transition. You can transition to many different storage classes, so with one rule. This is how you can transition. The second one I'll show you in the same one. Basically, if you want to move, so first option apply to the current version. If you want to apply for the non-current version, let's say you have enabled the version on the object, the bucket, and the object has a version, so you can move the version, not the current version. This is the option. So let's say you want to expire the current version, so that means you want to delete the object after 30 days or 365 days. After 365 days you need to delete. This is where you can select the second option. Same way you can use a fourth and fifth for the different scenario. That's how you can create a lifecycle rule which automatically triggered, and it's transition the object between S3 storage classes, or it could delete permanently. So hope you enjoy, and let's move to next slide. S3 event notification. This is another great features come with S3. You can trigger different services whenever the objects are uploaded to S3 bucket or specific folder. These triggers can be scoped or fine-tuned with the action like added, updated, deleted, so on. Let's say you want to end a message to SQS when a new object is added, but you don't need to send a message when the object is updated. That kind of flexible configurations come with the S3 event. The S3 event S3 events notification supports many services like SNS, SQS, and Lambda. Now let's have a look on demo. So how this S3 event notification work? Right, I'm back in my AWS console. I'm gonna inside to my bucket and go to properties and scroll down until you see event notification. This is where you can set up the S3 event notification. Click on event notification and give it a name, event 1. And as I mentioned, either you can apply this event to whole bucket, or you can give a filter to specific folder. Like either you can use a prefix or a suffix. Let's say, for example, if you want to event add this event on a specific extension, file extension, this is where you can mention this extension. So otherwise you can apply this event to a folder. This is where you can use a prefix. And okay, so in this case, as you can see, there are so many event type. Either you can trigger this event for specific type or everything. In this case, what I'm going to select all create event. That's mean it's include put, post, copy, and multipart, everything. And what else you can see, you can trigger this event on different action: object removal, object restore, for the down, replication, and lifecycle change. Let's say the object is moving to different S3 classes. That's where you can trigger this notification. So then we go to the destination. As I mentioned, destination, you can trigger Lambda, SNS, or SQS. In this case, I am triggering the Lambda, and already I do have a test Lambda created, just a simple Lambda with the Node.js, and which is get in the event and log the event and return the same event back. That's a very simple Lambda. What I'm going to go, I'm selecting this Lambda, choose this Lambda function, I'm select the test Lambda, the one that already created, and save change. Right, so the event is set up. As you can see, you can add multiple events, not just one event. You can create an event on a second event on different action or different destination. You can create a different destination. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into object, and currently I don't have, I'm opening in the Lambda, I'm opening a monitor. Go to CloudWatch, because I'm gonna upload one object into S3. Then I'm checking whether Lambda get executed. I can see the logs. That's a plan, right? As you can see, currently we don't have any logs. What I'm going to do, I'm going to upload a object. Let's say object 4, and upload this trigger, the one that we create the event. What's going to happen, we should see some logs over here. Oh, here we go. So you can see we got logs, and if I open this log, as you can see, this is a time, and you get the record, and record has a S3 object. So the event has all the information about S3 object. If you deserialize this S3 object, you can see what the file and how much it's gonna, what the size, sort of thing, all the metadata of the object. So that's how it's working. And if I go to my Lambda and give it a refresh, as you can see, it should set up towards S3. As you can see, it's added the trigger in Lambda side as a S3. That's how the event notification work. So again, so you can configure with the SQS, Lambda, or SNS, and you can add a multiple event on different different action. Replication. A replication enabled to automatically and asynchronously copy the object across Amazon S3 bucket. It could be into a single bucket, or you can copy into multiple bucket. Again, it could be in your same AWS account, or different AWS account, or different region. So there are two types of replication: the live replication and S3 batch replication. I'll keep the link in the AWS documentation. It's give a very good understanding of the replication and when to use, and what are the use cases you can use for replication. So in terms of the AWS exam point of view, replication is used for disaster recovery management. Let's say you have a S3 bucket in one region and you want to do some DR scenario. You want to keep some up and running the system, even though the S3 bucket in the particular region is has some issue. That's where you can use some S3 replication, where you can copy the object from one S3 bucket to a different S3 bucket for disaster recovery scenario. So let's go to have a look how this replication in console and through the demo. Right, currently I'm in back in AWS management console. Currently I do have a one bucket I created, and I create another bucket for the replication. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a replication rule on test demo test 3, and upload a file and which replicate in the second replication bucket. Let's go to this bucket, and I'll open the other bucket in a different tab to make sure. Give me a sec. Copy in new tab. So as you can see, this one doesn't have any object in this bucket. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open the old bucket, then I'm going to management. This is lifecycle replication rule. So this is where you can create a replication rule. So create a rule, let's say rule 1, and I'm going to status as enable, and this is a source bucket, the one that I'm working on. And you can choose some rule, give some scope. Do you want to copy a whole bucket or a specific folder? And tags and destination. So this is where you can select the destination browse S3 bucket. So as you can see, I'm gonna select the other bucket, and so of course you need to enable the versioning. If you want to use replication, you want to use enable versioning. So I'm gonna enable, and I let to create a new role, because to copy the object from this bucket to other bucket, you should have permission. So I'll let create a role. And this, you say you want to encryption, and the other bit is you can change the destination storage class. Let's say the object in the source storage is a S3 standard, but you can copy that same object into other bucket into different storage class. That's where you can change. This is where you can change the storage class. Yeah, there are some other option in the replication option. These are, as you can describe, it's pretty descriptive. You can have a look for the information. So I'm gonna click on the save. This should create a replication rule, and it's asking, okay, do we want to replicate for the existing object or the new object? But I'm going to say, okay, I'm fine with the only new object. Click on submit. So it's got created. I'm going to here, and I'm going to refresh the second bucket, and go to first bucket, and gonna update one object. So let's have a look and open test 4. I'm upload test 4. One thing I forgot to show, when you upload the object, you can set, as I mentioned, the standard storage class is a standard. The default storage class is standard. You can change the storage class while you are uploading to original bucket. So what I'm going to do, I'm keep this standard and upload. This will upload the object into test demo test S3, and give a refresh, and I'm go to the other bucket, which is destination bucket, give a refresh. Let's give a refresh, nice refresh. Right, here you go. So you can see the same object replicate in the second bucket. That's how you can use the replication. As I mentioned, this is one of the exam question. It's coming in a frequently coming on the disaster recovery scenario. Access in S3. There are many ways to access S3 bucket. So the usual way is using HTTPS URL, this is pretty standard. The second one is a pre-signed URL. Let's assume you want to share S3 bucket with the other party, the third party, but the other party doesn't have an AWS account at all. That is where you can use the pre-signed URL. You can create a temporary URL on top of the object, and you can share that particular link with the relevant party. As this URL comes with the expire time, this is a really good way to share the S3 object without compromising security. After a specific time, the URL is no more valid. Most of the cases, the mobile application use this pre-signed URL. The other one is a S3 Gateway Endpoint. This is one of the question come under Solution Architect professional exam. Let's see why we need to use S3 Gateway Endpoint. This allows you to access S3 bucket without going through the internet. Usually S3 is accessed via internet as it is a global service. If you want to access S3 within your VPC, then you can use S3 Gateway Endpoint. The exam question is like this. You have a EC2 and NAT gateway, and you use to upload large file to S3. So then the exam question is asking, how do you minimize the cost? This is where you can use S3 Gateway Endpoint. So EC2 can access S3 bucket directly without going through the internet. So let's go to have a demo on this topic. Right, I'm in my S3 bucket test demo test S3. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a pre-signed URL for one of the object, which is test.txt. Go inside the object and click on the object action in the topmost, and click on the shared with the pre-signed URL. So one thing you need to mention, pre-signed URL you can create for object, not for the whole bucket. If you want to create you want to share multiple objects, you need to create a separate pre-signed URL. So in this case, I'm click on the share with pre-signed URL. As I mentioned, URL comes with the expire time. Either you can select it's a minute or hours. So if you are sharing with the mobile application, most of the time it's like a very less time, like a minute or few minutes. But if you are sharing this URL with a third party or manually, so more likely I believe it's like hours. In this case, I'm saying that after 10 minutes. What's going to happen after 10 minutes? This URL will be expired, and you no longer access the object using this pre-signed URL. That's how it's happening. Click on the pre-signed URL. What they said, it's get created and the copy into clipboard. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open a new tab and paste the URL. As you can see, it's a credential, signature, and this is definitely has an expire time. So here we go. You can access the file using the pre-signed URL. That's how you pre-signed URL work. Now let's go to the other one, which is S3 Gateway Endpoint. So S3 Gateway Endpoint, I'll go through the theory, not for the demo. I'll show you where you can find, and I put the URL in the slide. You can go and have a look. So this is a endpoint. So how do we create the endpoint? Gateway endpoint for Amazon S3, and there's consideration and what you need to do specifically, and you can delete the gateway endpoint after your hands-on. So yeah, give a shot, and hopefully it's pretty easy. And if you guys have any question regarding the gateway endpoint, please comment below so I can help you. That is something. Let's go to the slide back. That is pretty much for today. If you have any question, please comment under the comment section. Plus, if you have any question or issue down the line when you following this video, please let me know in the comment. Finally, thanks for watching, and please subscribe my channel. I really appreciate it. See you on next video.